My brother lied about me to our parents for years, claiming I stole money from them. I uncovered the truth when I found proof he was the real thief. I exposed him at a family gathering, and now he's begging for forgiveness. Okay, so let me start by saying my brother, let's call him Ethan because why not, has always been that guy. You know the type, family golden boy, Mr. Can Do No Wrong, the one our parents Loki worshipped like he was the second coming. Meanwhile, I've always been labeled the problem child. Not because I actually did anything bad, mind you, but because I'm the weird one. The one who dared to question our parents' rules, wore eyeliner in high school, and didn't want to go into the family business. You get the picture. Anyway, for the last few years, things between me and my parents have been tense. Like they'd always look at me sideways during family dinners, hit me with passive-aggressive comments about my choices, and constantly compare me to Ethan. Ethan just bought a new house. Why are you still renting? Ethan got promoted. How's your job going? Blah, blah, blah. You get it. But things really popped off about 2 months ago when I found out why they were acting this way. Turns out my dear brother had been telling them I stole money from them. Like straight-up fraud-level accusations. Apparently he told them this lie years ago, and they just believed him. No proof, no receipts, no questions asked. Like, dead ass? I've never even borrowed $1 from these people without paying it back. And you're telling me they've been holding on to this secret grudge against me while Ethan's been living rent-free in their hearts and minds? I was livid, but I didn't want to blow up without evidence. So, I went into FBI mode to find out what was really going on. The first break in the case came when I visited my parents' house. I was chilling in the living room, minding my own business, when my mom casually mentioned that Ethan had been helping them sort out their finances for the past few years. That immediately raised a red flag because, 1, Ethan is terrible with money, and 2, why would they trust him with their accounts when they didn't even trust me to babysit the dog? So, while they were in the kitchen, I did something I'm not exactly proud of. I snooped. Look, I know that's not the best move, but desperate times call for desperate measures. I found a stack of papers in the office labeled Family Finances. Inside, bank statements, random receipts, and Ethan's name on a bunch of transactions that looked sketchy as hell. The dude was literally funneling money out of their account to pay bills for his business ventures. Read failed startup ideas. It was so obvious, I'm honestly shocked they hadn't noticed. But I knew if I just confronted him or my parents with this, he'd talk his way out of it. I needed hard, undeniable proof. Over the next week, I started piecing together everything. I even asked one of my tech-savvy friends to help me recover some deleted files from my dad's old laptop. Shout out to Mark, you're a real one. What we found was the smoking gun, an email from Ethan to my dad saying, "Don't tell me about this. They'll just blow it out of proportion like they always do." Are you kidding me? Ethan was out here stealing from our parents, making me look like the bad guy, and then gaslighting everyone into thinking I was overreacting. I was fuming, but I knew I had to play it smart. If I went off half-cocked, my parents would probably side with him like they always do. So, I decided to bide my time. And by bide my time, I mean I started planning how to expose him in the most dramatic way possible. You know, because that's what any petty sibling would do, right? Fast forward to last weekend. We had a big family dinner planned. All the usual suspects were going to be there. Me, Ethan, my parents, some cousins, and even my grandparents. Perfect opportunity to drop the truth bomb. I spent the whole week preparing my receipts, literally and figuratively. I printed out copies of the emails, highlighted the bank transactions, and even rehearsed what I was going to say. By the time the dinner rolled around, I was ready. I was nervous, but I knew it was time to clear my name once and for all. No cap, this was going to be the showdown of the century. Dinner started off like any other awkward family gathering. Polite small talk, my mom, Loki, bragging about Ethan's latest accomplishment, and my dad bringing up some random life lessons nobody asked for. I sat there trying to act normal, even though my heart was racing faster than when you realize you forgot to plug in your phone overnight. Ethan, of course, was basking in the attention. He was doing that thing where he talks about himself like he's the main character of a motivational movie. Oh yeah, business has been tough, but you know, I'm just grinding it out. Hustle culture, right? Meanwhile, I'm sitting there thinking, hustle? Bro, you're hustling our parents' bank account, not your job. At some point, my grandma asked me about my work, and before I could even answer, Ethan butted in with some passive-aggressive jab. Well, You know, not everyone's cut out for the corporate world. The table chuckled, and my mom gave him that proud, "Oh, he's so witty" smile. I wanted to scream. I waited until everyone had eaten and started settling into that post-dinner lull. You know the one, where people are too stuffed to move and just start mindlessly sipping on coffee. That's when I struck. "So," I said, setting down my fork and looking directly at Ethan, "how's your business going?" Ethan smirked. "Oh, you know, just staying busy. Lots of projects in the works." "Right," I replied, my voice dripping with fake enthusiasm. "Projects like transferring thousands of dollars from mom and dad's account?" The room went dead silent. I swear you could hear my grandma's fork hit her plate. Ethan froze, and my mom immediately looked confused. "What are you talking about?" she asked. I pulled out a manila folder I'd been hiding under the table. Yes, I went full-on courtroom drama mode, and slid it across to my dad. "This," I said, "is a record of every transaction Ethan has made from your accounts over the last 3 years, including the ones he told you not to tell me about." My dad opened the folder, and as he flipped through the pages, his face went from confused to straight-up furious. Ethan tried to laugh it off. "Oh, come on, my name. You've always had a flair for the dramatic." "Oh, really?" I said, pulling out another piece of paper. "Then maybe you can explain this email you sent to Dad asking him to keep me out of the loop, or this transaction where you used their money to pay off your credit card debt?" At that point, my mom snatched the folder from my dad and started going through it herself. Her face went pale, and she turned to Ethan. "Is this true?" Ethan tried to backpedal. "It's not what it looks like. I was just helping manage things. You know how complicated finances can be." "Oh, really?" I said, leaning forward. "Because it looks pretty simple to me. You've been stealing from them and covering your tracks by blaming me for it. Do you want me to keep going, or are you ready to come clean?" Ethan's face turned bright red. He opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. For the first time in his life, Mr. Golden Boy didn't have a clever comeback. My mom looked at him, her voice shaking. "Ethan, is this true? Did you really do this?" He finally stammered out, "It wasn't like that, okay? I just borrowed a little money. I was going to pay it back." "Borrowed?" I shot back. "You've drained thousands of dollars from their account and you didn't even tell them, and then you had the audacity to lie about me to cover your ass?" At that point, my grandma chimed in, which was honestly surprising because she's usually Team Ethan. "Ethan," she said in her calm but terrifying grandma voice, "if you did this, you owe your parents an explanation. Right now." Ethan looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just needed some extra cash to get the business off the ground. I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed." "Well," I said, crossing my arms, "you clearly failed at that." The room fell into an awkward, suffocating silence. My parents sat there, frozen, their eyes darting between me and Ethan. Ethan looked pale, his expression a mix of guilt and panic. My mom was the first to break the silence, her voice trembling. "So, how long has this been going on?" Ethan hesitated, his eyes fixed on the table. "A few years," he muttered. "A few years." My mom's voice cracked, disbelief lacing every word. "You've been lying to us for years, Ethan?" He nodded, unable to meet her gaze. My dad, who'd been silent up until now, slammed his hand on the table, his voice rising. "Why, Ethan? Why would you do this to us? Why lie about my name when she's been nothing but responsible?" Ethan sat there, mute, looking like a guilty kid caught stealing cookies. My mom was near tears now, trying to hold it together. "Why didn't you just ask for help? We would have helped you." Ethan rubbed his temples, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want to ask for help. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could fix it quietly." "Fix it quietly?" My mom's voice rose. "You stole from us, Ethan. You've been lying about my name the whole time, dragging her through the dirt." Ethan looked between us, desperation pouring from his face. "Please, I'll pay it back. I swear I'll make things right." My mom's voice cracked again, but she refused to break down. "How can we trust you now, Ethan? How can we believe anything you say?" Ethan shot up from his chair, pacing the room. "I'll make it right. I'll pay every cent back. I'll fix everything." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "Fix everything? By begging us not to tell anyone? That ship sailed, bro. You've already screwed yourself." Ethan stopped mid-step and looked at me with that trademark arrogance fading from his face. "Please, my name, just give me a chance to fix this." I snorted, unable to hold back my amusement. "A chance? Bro, you had years to fix this. Now you want a second chance? You low-key sound like you're auditioning for a reality show." His expression twisted in frustration. Look, I know I messed up. I know I screwed everything up, but I didn't mean for it to go this far. Not mean for it to go this far? I repeated, leaning forward. Deadass? You didn't mean to ruin my life? Because it sure feels like that's what you've been doing for years. Ethan clenched his jaw, his pride clearly wounded. I'll pay it back. I'll make sure you get your share. Just, please, don't tell anyone. My mom glanced at my dad, who was staring at the floor, deep in thought. You expect us to trust you after everything? Ethan shot a pleading look at my parents. I'll make it right. I swear I'll do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes? I said, raising an eyebrow. Like paying me back for the emotional and financial damage you caused? Or are we supposed to forget everything? Ethan's jaw tightened, his eyes flashing with frustration. I'll make it right. I swear I will. I leaned back in my chair, my tone laced with sarcasm. Oh no, Cap, Ethan. You should have thought of that before you decided to ruin my life. Ethan shot me a glare, his pride finally breaking down into something more desperate. Please, my name, please, just give me a chance. I let the silence stretch out, soaking in the moment. The guy who had been riding high on our family pedestal was now begging. My mom and dad exchanged uncertain glances. My mom's voice trembled, but she held firm. Ethan, this changes everything. Ethan dropped to his knees, tears now streaming down his face. Please, I'll do anything. Just don't tell anyone. I looked at my parents. Well, what do you want to do? He says he'll fix it. Do we believe him? My dad finally spoke, his voice steely. I don't know. My name. What do you think? I sat there for a moment, letting the weight of it all sink in. Part of me wanted to scream, to lash out, but there was also this weird satisfaction in watching Ethan crumble. Still, something didn't sit right. Do I trust him? I murmured. I guess we'll see, but one thing's for sure. He'll have to earn it. After Ethan's dramatic breakdown, silence lingered in the room like an awkward third wheel at a party. My parents exchanged glances, visibly unsure of what to believe, and honestly, so was I. Ethan was a mess, desperate, apologetic, and pleading, but something in his demeanor didn't sit right. I knew he was sorry, sort of, but did I believe he'd actually make things right? No cap, I had my doubts. Still, the sheer audacity of him, the lies he'd built, and the way he'd smeared my name for years made me hesitate to cut him slack. I guess we'll see, I finally said, trying to keep my voice calm, measured. But it's gonna take more than tears and promises, Ethan. Ethan nodded, still visibly shaken. My mom looked torn, glancing between her son and me. I don't know what to think, she whispered. But if there's any chance this can be fixed. My dad didn't say much. His face hardened in that way only years of disappointment can harden a man's heart. But the tension in the room was suffocating, and I couldn't tell if they truly wanted to forgive him or if they were just exhausted by the whole thing. Then, out of nowhere, my cousin Rachel, who had been eerily quiet up to that point, spoke up. Wait, she said, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. Did Ethan really say you stole money, my name? I blinked. Yeah, I replied slowly, not entirely sure where she was going with this. Apparently, I've been the family thief for years, but it wasn't me. It was him. Rachel narrowed her eyes at Ethan. And you never thought to mention this? To any of us? Ethan shifted uncomfortably, but his silence was enough of an answer. Rachel leaned back in her chair, a thoughtful expression on her face. I've been talking to some people, doing some digging, she said. Turns out, Ethan wasn't just stealing from our parents. My ears perked up at that. Wait, what do you mean? Rachel glanced at me, then back at Ethan. I didn't want to say anything earlier, but I found out some stuff. About the business Ethan kept bragging about how he was struggling. Ethan frowned, his shoulders tense. What are you talking about? Rachel smirked, that same smirk that said she knew something the rest of us didn't. I talked to some of his former business partners. Turns out there were never any real ventures, just failed attempts to cover his tracks. What are you trying to say, Rachel? My mom asked, looking confused but curious. Rachel leaned forward. I'm saying Ethan wasn't just stealing money from you guys. He was stealing from everyone. Ethan's face went pale. He started shaking his head. That's not true. They're just bitter. But Rachel wasn't buying it. Oh, they're not bitter, Ethan. They're out thousands of dollars. And surprise, none of them believe your excuses either. Ethan stood up abruptly, his composure finally breaking. You're lying. You're trying to ruin me. Rachel crossed her arms, glaring. No, Ethan, you ruined yourself. All I'm doing is showing you what's already crumbling beneath your feet. I couldn't help but smirk. The whole situation had become a dumpster fire. And Ethan? He was the one who lit the match and was now watching it burn. My parents were silent, taking it all in. My dad finally broke the quiet. Is this true, Ethan? Is what Rachel's saying real? Ethan looked around, visibly panicking. He opened his mouth, clearly trying to come up with another excuse, but before he could speak, my mom cut him off. Enough, Ethan, she said, her voice calm but firm. You've had your chance to explain, and what you've told us. She trailed off, shaking her head in disappointment. I don't know who or what to believe anymore, my dad said, his tone cold. But one thing is certain, the trust is gone. Ethan slumped back into his chair, his shoulders defeated. Please, just give me a chance. But Rachel wasn't done. A chance? Ethan, you had years to fix this. You've been lying to us, to everyone. Stop, Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. Please, just stop. After cutting Ethan off, life felt different. Like I had finally exhaled after holding my breath for too long. The constant anxiety, the tension around family gatherings, gone. But the void they left behind wasn't filled with clarity, at least not yet. It was just emptiness. I didn't expect closure, nor did I really believe in it anymore. What I had gained from this wasn't some neat resolution where everything clicked into place. It was messier than that, unfinished, chaotic, but it was mine. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, things began to shift, though not the way I had imagined. My parents were distant at first, struggling with their own emotions. My mom cried a lot more than usual, and my dad seemed quieter, more reflective. They were dealing with the fallout in their own ways, and through all of it, I wasn't sure what my place was anymore. One day, while scrolling through my phone, I noticed a message from Rachel. Rachel, hey, just checking in. How's everything going? You holding up? I stared at the message for a moment. Rachel had been the one constant throughout this mess. Someone who had never judged me, who had helped piece the truth together, and who, frankly, had made it easier for me to stand firm. I wasn't sure where we stood after all of this, but her reaching out felt like an anchor. Me. Hey, honestly, it's been a lot. Still processing everything. A few minutes later, Rachel replied. Rachel. Yeah, no cap, I get it. Took me a while to figure it out too, but you'll get there. There was a pause before I responded. I wasn't even sure what I was thinking, but Rachel had become someone I didn't want to let go of. She wasn't family by blood, but she had been there when I needed someone the most. Me. Thanks, Rachel. I don't know how I'd have gotten through this without you. Rachel. Honestly, same. Feels like we were both drowning in that mess. We kept texting into the night, and it felt like a piece of the weight had lifted. Maybe it wasn't all gone, but there was a connection there. A reminder that sometimes family isn't just about blood. Weeks later, I found myself standing in front of my parents' house again. The space wasn't what it once was, and neither was I. The house felt different, quieter somehow. I wasn't sure what to expect when I knocked on the door. My mom answered first, her face soft but tired. Hey, sweetie, she said, pulling me into a hug. I've missed you, she admitted, and I realized just how much had been left unsaid. I've missed you too, Mom, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. We stood there for a few moments, letting the silence between us speak louder than any words could. Eventually, my dad appeared from the living room, his eyes meeting mine. There was a flicker of something in his gaze, something I couldn't quite read. I guess we've got a lot of catching up to do, he said, his voice gruff, but not unkind. We sat together, finally talking. Not just about Ethan, but about everything. The past, the lies, the hurt. It wasn't easy, and there were plenty of awkward silences, but it felt necessary. Closure wasn't about erasing the past, but acknowledging it and moving forward. One evening, as I sat alone, reflecting on everything that had happened, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from Rachel. Rachel. Hey, just checking in. How's life treating you now? I smiled at her message. Life was still messy, still uncertain, but I wasn't afraid of it anymore. Me. Better. Thanks for everything, Rachel. I'm not sure I could have done this without you. Rachel responded with a simple, anytime, and it felt like we had both come full circle. Some wounds may never fully heal, and some truths are harder to accept than others. But in the end, what matters most is how we choose to carry those truths and who we choose to walk with. As I sat on my bed, replaying everything that had happened, a strange sense of calm washed over me. The mess wasn't fully cleaned up, but I'd come to terms with the fact that life wasn't about perfect resolutions. Sometimes you have to let things sit in their imperfection. Ethan had reached out again. No surprise there. His messages were filled with desperate pleas, apologies that felt more like hollow scripts than heartfelt ones. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Rachel checked in regularly, though, and slowly, we had built something unexpected. Maybe not friendship, but a kind of understanding. She reminded me that sometimes the people who aren't family by blood are the ones who show up when you need them most. One night, as I stared at my phone, I realized I didn't need closure from Ethan. I didn't need him to validate my pain or give me answers. The closure was already within me. It was in the way I decided to stop letting his lies haunt me. The family dynamic was still fragile, still full of cracks that might never fully heal. But we were trying, stumbling maybe, but trying. My parents weren't the same, but neither was I. And somehow, that felt okay. I hadn't gone back to my life the way it was before. Maybe I never would, but I was stronger now, more sure of who I was, of what I deserved. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. As I sat down to write this, I realized how much it helped to get it all off my chest. If you've made it this far, thank you for reading my story. It wasn't about the money or even about Ethan. It was about standing up for myself and reclaiming my life. If you've got your own stories, your own battles, know that you're not alone. There's strength in sharing, and sometimes sharing helps you heal. If you enjoyed reading this, consider hitting the subscribe button for more stories like these. I'll be posting more about life, struggles, and, of course, trying to find my way through the chaos. Stay strong, stay real, and never stop believing in yourself. Until next time.